We're now going to create a tree, and we'll just create two different versions of this tree, and we'll use a function in Blender that will spread many copies of the trees out across our landscape. So I've just put the cursor near the train, so I've pressed Shift and right click, which puts the cursor wherever your mouse cursor is, and we're putting it next to the train so that we can get a good idea of some scale. So make sure you're in object mode, go add, mesh, and cube, and we're going to use this as the beginning of our tree trunk. So get it around about the right width that you want the tree, get it into a height that's maybe just a little bit taller than the train. There we are, that's good. I'm going to go object, apply, scale, and that puts all these values back to 1. That's a good habit to keep doing that when you're changing the rotation or the scale of an object. Now we're going into edit mode. So press tab to go into edit mode. Make sure that the face select is on. And I'm going to actually use this cutting tool here. It's called the loop cut tool. I'm going to put a few cuts along the trunk here. And that will enable us to shortly just bend the tree trunk a little bit to give it a little bit more of an organic shape. So we'll do that shortly. Go back up to the grab tool, and we're going to then just got to go back onto face select the top face of this shape. Right click and select subdivide. So subdivide is a really good way, like what we did with the ground, to give you some extra faces. We are now going to extrude these 4 new faces to create the tree branches. So I'm going to use the extrude tool, but instead of using the button here, I'm just going to use a keyboard shortcut of pressing E. And when I press that, it locks the extruding face along the Z axis going up and down. So I'm just going to press Z again to unlock it so I can move it around and bend it outwards like this, and then grab, G for grab, bending it outwards like that. So I'm going around and I'm going to do that to all these 4 squares, E, Z to unlock it, and bending it outwards, and grab if you want to just change the location of it. Go to the next one, E, Z, and the last one, E, Z. Okay, and we can go to the top view just to make sure those branches are kind of evenly spread out. All right, that's looking nice. Going back to the front view, we might then just make them a little bit higher, each one. So I'm just pressing G, grabbing the top face, press G, and moving them upwards. Okay, so that's our basic tree trunk and branches shape. So now what we can do is to add a little bit more interest to the shape. I'm going back to the loop cut tool, and I'm going to put a cut in all these 4 branches. I'm just going to change the location of some of those cuts. So by holding down your left click button and then moving up and down, that cut changes its location. And now going back to the select tool, we're on the edge select mode. And when I click on an edge and I hold down Alt, so Alt and clicking on an edge, it selects all the edges in that loop. So what I'm going to do is just now go to proportional editing, turn that on. With proportional editing turned on, I'm going to select G on the keyboard, and that brings up that circle. That's called the circle of influence. So again, with my mouse wheel, I can scroll it back and forwards to determine how much is being influenced. So if I just move that cut a little bit and I select the entire tree, basically the whole tree moves, but we don't want the whole tree to move. So I'm just going to keep that circle quite small, so just a little bit of the other shapes, other cuts are affected. So I'm going to do the same thing to the next cut, G, and just bend it another way, and Alt click G and bend it again another way. All right, and that just gives the tree a little bit more of an interesting shape, a little bit more organic. I'm going to just change the branches a little bit, going on to face select mode, G, and just bending them maybe a little bit more upwards. Okay, and that's our tree trunk. So that's pretty nice. When we go back to object mode, make sure you're saving your work all the time, of course, and it looks very square, but when we go right click and shade smooth, it rounds out those edges a little bit, enough for us to be fooled by when it's in the background to look like it's a nice round tree trunk. So now we're going to add some shapes to replicate the bushy leaves that are on this tree. We're just going to add now some spheres. So we go add, mesh, icosphere. Don't do the UV sphere. The UV sphere is a really nice round shape, but it's lots and lots of polygons, which gives your laptop lots of work to do. The icosphere is good enough for what we're doing here. So it's just less for your laptop to have to process. So I'm going to put an icosphere on one of those branches like that and just fiddle around with the shape a little bit using the scale tool. And you can rotate it as well, so it sort of fits the direction of the branch. And I'm just going to now Shift D to duplicate that and just move it around to the other branches. Make sure that you rotate around to make sure it is actually on the branch, and we can change the shape of it. Okay, and that's our bushy leaves. So this is called low polygon building. So we're not trying to aim for anything that looks realistic. We're just trying to use as few shapes and as few faces on those shapes as possible. So low polygon building. Okay, so if you can get that far to create your first tree, that's really good. And we can easily copy some of those details from this tree to make a second variety of trees. So I'm going to select the tree trunk, Shift D, and just move it across. I'm going to select one of these bushy leaves, Shift D, and move it across as well. With this one, I might try to just make it a little bit more straight, and I'm going to just enlarge the entire shape, and that's going to be a second variety of tree there. So you can just maybe keep adjusting it until you get something that you like. So now we have two different trees. What we can do is to put all of these trees into a collection. So I'm going to press Shift and click on all those objects that make up our tree. Make sure you haven't accidentally clicked anything else. And now I'm pressing M, new collection, and this is our trees collection. So now those trees can easily be all selected at once. We can close these folders as well. So there's our trees. And again, if we need to hide those trees, we can do that as well. And I can see I've missed clicking one of the shapes there. And I'm just adding that one.